This is the new Light Panels Gemini 1x1 Hard, which is the answer from Light Panels to customers who wanted a brighter, punchier light within the Gemini range. I mean, the current 2x1 and 1x1 soft models of the Gemini are still pretty bright lights, especially considering their soft RGB panels. But this new 1x1 Hard model takes things to a whole new level. I mean, this is an absurdly bright light for a 1x1 RGB panel. Let's start by just diving straight into some numbers and look at some actual light meter readings so that you can see what I mean with some actual numbers. With the ultralight diffusion panel that the light comes with, it scores 24,500 lux at 1 meter. And the bare bulbs themselves get a whopping 31,000. If we compare that to the soft versions of the Gemini, the 1x1 kicks out 5,700 lux and the 2x1 scores 10,500. But of course, this is using the medium diffusers that those lights come with, while the new 1x1 Hard has this much lighter diffusion panel. They use the same accessories though, so if we put this diffusion panel on the 1x1 soft, we can get a much better idea of exactly how much brighter this new model is. And with that ultralight diffusion, the 1x1 soft achieves just over 7,000 compared to the 1x1 Hard's 24,500. So it's safe to say it is a significantly brighter light source. But let's try and put some perspective on those numbers and compare them to some other lights which we've tested over the years. The Arri Sky panels measured just that little bit brighter than the Gemini soft models. The Aperture 300D Mark II, a completely different type of light source altogether, measures 45,000 lux with its Bowens mount reflector that comes with it. So the 1x1 Hard isn't actually that far off that really at the 31,000 lux without its diffusion panel. But that's a hugely unfair comparison. I mean, the C300D Mark II is a daylight only chip on board LED light, which is built to do only one thing really, and that's be really bright. This new Gemini is a 1x1 RGB panel. I mean, the brightest RGB panel that I knew of previous to this would probably be the Lupo Super Panel Full Color, which I haven't measured myself, but on their website they say it's 25,000 lux at 1 meter. But that's for their 2x1 panel, which is very hard and just about comparing to the Gemini with its diffusion in. With the Gemini bare, there's no competition. For an RGB 1x1 panel, this is incredibly impressive stuff and has never really been done before. Even if you ignore the RGB side of the light and just look at the brightest light that light panels have had to date, the Astra 6 times, we measured that at 13,500. And the Astra 6 times is often held up as people's standard for a bright 1x1 panel. And it's not RGB. RGB is a fantastic addition to high-end lights like this, but it does normally compromise your brightness. The best way to demonstrate this is to look at a light which has both versions. So the one that springs to mind is the Lupo Super Panel Full Color 30 again, because that's got its bi-color counterpart. On Lupo's website they say that the regular dual color option is over twice as bright as its RGB version. So it is really impressive that light panels have managed to get this much brightness out of a 1x1 RGB panel. So I think I've said enough times now that this is a really bright LED panel. But to just show off what you can achieve now that it's this much brighter, Light Panels hired cinematographer Joe Ransom to make a launch film for the light, which is actually more of a action short film than a product launch film. But it does a great job of showing off what the light can actually do. It was lit exclusively with a bunch of these Gemini 1x1 Hard lights, and they used them for large soft overhead sources, hard background shadows, to replace sodium street lights and police cars. It really just shows how flexible this light now is, because you can use it as a soft source, just like the normal Geminis, but it's also bright enough to be a hard source when needed by putting a bit of distance between the light and the subject. Now physically, it looks very similar to the 1x1 soft. In fact, you'd be hard pressed to really tell them apart. It's the same design, same accessory slot on the front, and the same control system, including this row of preset buttons, which is probably my favorite part of the Gemini system. It also uses the same integrated power supply, so you don't have to have a large ballast unit hanging off or anything like that. You only start to see the difference between this and the 1x1 Soft when you take this diffusion panel off. Instead of the flat array of bare SMD LEDs, which the Soft version has, the 1x1 Hard has what looks at first glance like a normal array of raised dip LEDs, like you would have seen on older, regular, cheaper LED panels. But they're actually SMD LEDs, and just like the Soft one, but with this specially designed raised lens in front of them in order to make the most of the brightness. Now this is similar to what they do on the Astra 6x, or what brands like Lupo do, but rather than grouping multiple LEDs behind a single larger lens, they've made more smaller little lenses to cover each LED individually. This does a couple of important things. It avoids heat buildup, so they can run more power into each LED and therefore it can be brighter. And it means that each LED lens can be individually designed for its placement in the array in order to help with focusing. Another feature that light panels have managed to keep is the completely flicker-free performance, whether you're running this light at full blast or at 0.1% brightness. You need a lot of light for slow motion work, so I would expect this to be a very popular option for slow motion stuff when you'd normally be using a big generator and HMI fixtures. You can even get dual or quad bundles of these for when you need even more light. So they really can replace some very large and high power draw lighting fixtures. After trying this out for a few days, it's definitely now my go-to recommendation from the Gemini range because it is simply so versatile. But my main question, I suppose, is it may be called the Gemini 1x1 Hard, but is this a hard light? I mean, it's still a 1x1 panel. You can't use a Fresnel lens or a spotlight mount or anything like that to really control and shape your light, get those hard, precise shadows or beams. So it can't quite do every single job in the lighting toolkit. I guess this is more of a hybrid design, using its extra brightness to give you a very convenient tool that can change from being a relatively hard source to being a very soft source very quickly. It's certainly now one of the most convenient ways of getting a decent amount of light onto a high-end set. And so productions might well start swapping out some of their regular hard lights for these in some situations, simply because they're so much more convenient. You can go from one style of light to another. One light can do multiple jobs with minimal change in configuration, which just ends up saving you time and money. So that's the new Gemini 1x1 Hard from Light Panels. But what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below, and if you want to buy one for your own work or any of the accessories and bundles that Light Panels have released alongside it, head over to proav.co.uk, or of course just get in touch with our sales team directly. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.